From translation, ISV International Standard Version. This 284th day of the year. Today we are reading passages Matthew 22 to 23. Matthew chapter 22, verses 1 to 46. Jesus once again began to teach them by parables. He said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a king who prepared a wedding banquet for his son. He sent his servants to summon those who had been invited to the banquet, but they refused to come. Again he sent other servants, saying, 'Tell those who have been invited that I have prepared my banquet. My oxen and fattened calves have been slaughtered, and everything is ready. Come to the banquet.' But they paid no attention and went away, one to his farm, another to his business. The rest seized his servants, mistreated them, and killed them. The king became enraged and sent his troops, destroyed those murderers, and burned their city. Then he said to his servants, 'The wedding banquet is ready, but those who were invited didn't deserve it. Go to the street corners and invite everyone you find to the banquet.' So those servants went out into the streets and gathered all they found, both evil and good, and the wedding hall was filled with guests. But when the king came in to see the guests, he noticed a man there who was not wearing wedding clothes. He said to him, 'Friend, how did you get in here without wedding clothes?' But the man was speechless. Then the king said to his attendants, 'Tie him up hand and foot and throw him into the darkness outside, where there will be weeping and gnashing of teeth. For many are called, but few are chosen.' Then the Pharisees went and plotted together how they might entangle Jesus in his words. They sent their disciples to him, along with the Herodians. 'Teacher,' they said, 'we know that you are truthful and teach the way of God in accordance with the truth. You are not partial to anyone because you don't look at people's appearance. Tell us then, what do you think? Is it lawful to pay taxes to Caesar or not?' But Jesus perceived their malice and said, 'Why are you testing me, you hypocrites? Show me the coin used for the tax.' So they brought him a denarius. He asked them, 'Whose image and inscription is this?' They told him, 'Caesar's.' Then he said to them, 'Give to Caesar what belongs to Caesar, and to God what belongs to God.' When they heard this, they were amazed. So they left him and went away. On that same day some Sadducees, who say there is no resurrection, came to him and asked, 'Teacher, Moses said, if a man dies without having children, his brother is to marry the widow and raise up children for his brother. Now there were 7 brothers among us. The first married and died, and having no children, he left his widow to his brother. The second did the same, and the third, and so on to the 7th. Finally, the woman died too. Now in the resurrection, whose wife will she be of the 7, since all 7 married her?' Jesus replied to them, 'You're mistaken because you don't know the scriptures or God's power. For in the resurrection, people neither marry nor are given in marriage. Instead, they are like angels in heaven. But as for the resurrection of the dead, haven't you read what was said to you by God? I am the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. He is not the God of the dead, but of the living.' When the crowds heard this, they were astonished at his teaching. But when the Pharisees heard that he had silenced the Sadducees, they gathered together. One of them, a lawyer, tested him by asking, 'Teacher, which is the greatest commandment in the law?' Jesus said to him, 'Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your mind. This is the greatest and most important commandment. The second is like it, love your neighbor as yourself. All the law and the prophets depend on these 2 commandments.' While the Pharisees were gathered together, Jesus asked them, 'What do you think about the Messiah? Whose son is he?' They told him, 'David's.' He said to them, 'How is it then that David, speaking by the Spirit, calls him Lord, when he says, if David calls him Lord, how can he be his son?' None of them could answer him, and from that day on no one dared to ask him any more questions." Matthew chapter 23, verses 1 to 39. Then Jesus said to the crowds and to his disciples, "The scribes and the Pharisees have taken their seat on Moses' chair. Therefore do and observe everything they tell you, but don't do what they do, because they don't practice what they preach. They tie up heavy loads and put them on people's shoulders, but they themselves are unwilling to lift a finger to move them. They do all their deeds to be seen by others. They make their phylacteries broad and their fringes long. They love the place of honor at banquets and the chief seats in the synagogues, and to be greeted with respect in the marketplaces, and to be called Rabbi by others. But you are not to be called Rabbi, because you have one teacher, and you are all brothers. And do not call anyone on earth your father, because you have one Father, who is in heaven. Nor are you to be called instructors, because you have one instructor, the Messiah. The greatest among you will be your servant. For those who exalt themselves will be humbled, and those who humble themselves will be exalted. How terrible for you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You lock people out of the kingdom of heaven, for you yourselves don't enter, nor do you permit those who are trying to enter to go in. How terrible for you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You devour widows' houses, and while making long prayers you cover it up, so you will receive a more severe punishment. How terrible for you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You travel over land and sea to make a single proselyte, and when you get one, you make him twice as much a child of hell as you are. How terrible for you, blind guides! You say, whoever swears by the temple is bound by nothing, but whoever swears by the gold of the temple is bound by the oath. You blind fools! Which is greater, the gold or the temple that makes the gold sacred? And you say, whoever swears by the altar is bound by nothing, but whoever swears by the gift that is on the altar is bound by the oath. You blind men! Which is greater, the gift or the altar that makes the gift sacred? Therefore, whoever swears by the altar swears by it and by everything on it. And whoever swears by the temple swears by it and by him who dwells in it. And whoever swears by heaven swears by the throne of God and by him who sits on it. How terrible for you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You give 1/10 of your mint, dill and cumin, but you have neglected the weightier matters of the law, justice, mercy and faithfulness. These you ought to have done without neglecting the others. You blind guides! You strain out a gnat but swallow a camel. How terrible for you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You clean the outside of the cup and dish, but inside they are full of greed and self-indulgence. Blind Pharisee, first clean the inside of the cup and dish, so that the outside may also become clean. How terrible for you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You are like whitewashed tombs, which look beautiful on the outside, but inside are full of the bones of the dead and everything unclean. In the same way you appear righteous to people, but inside you are full of hypocrisy and lawlessness. How terrible for you, scribes and Pharisees, you hypocrites! You build tombs for the prophets and decorate the grave of the righteous, and you say, if we had lived in the days of our ancestors, we wouldn't have taken part with them in shedding the blood of the prophets. In this way you testify against yourselves that you are descendants of those who murdered the prophets. Fill up then the measure of your ancestors. How terrible for you, snakes, you brood of vipers! How will you escape being condemned to hell? Therefore I am sending you prophets and wise men and scribes. Some of them you will kill and crucify, and some of them you will flog in your synagogues and pursue from town to town. This will come upon you because of all the righteous blood shed on earth, from the blood of righteous Abel to the blood of Zechariah son of Berechiah, whom you murdered between the sanctuary and the altar. I tell you the truth, all these things will come upon this generation. Jerusalem, Jerusalem, you who kill the prophets and stone those who are sent to you. How often I have wanted to gather your children together, as a hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were unwilling. Look, your house is left to you desolate. For I tell you, you will not see me again until you say, blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord.